Jimmy Rimmer lived a life that was a complete mess, full of hardships and struggles. He was hands down one of the best goalkeepers of his era and made invaluable contributions to the success of clubs like Manchester United, Arsenal, and Aston Villa with his quick reflexes at the post. Wonder what happened? Let's take a look. Jimmy came to the world on the 10th of February 1948 as the youngest of 3 kids in a working-class family. It was the post-war era and things were still difficult. Everyone was trying to restart and make ends meet, and Jimmy's family was no different. His father, Harold, worked as a factory labourer in his hometown, Southport, and often had to work for long hours to arrange the daily meals for his family. His mother, on the other hand, would make sure that whatever the family had, it was shared equally among everyone, and no one goes to sleep hungry. And although life wasn't flourishing for Rimmer financially, he had a very strong family bond and a sense of community among themselves that was more than a luxury. Living in a modest, terraced house, which was pretty typical of the time, Rimmer had gathered some of the best memories of his life in that house with his siblings and parents. And believe it or not, if it wasn't for his siblings, Rimmer might never have touched football. And becoming such a legend in the game, that was completely off the charts. He would often be found on the cobbled streets of Southport, playing football made up of bundled rags with his siblings. It was the joy, happiness and fun while playing the game that attracted the childish eyes of Rimmer. And as time passed, he would get more and more involved in the game and soon started imagining himself scoring dozens of goals in a single match at the highest level. Well, in his defense, he was still a kid. But for this kid, playing football was like putting his life on the line, quite literally. From a very young age, Jimmy suffered from asthma, a chronic disease that made breathing quite a challenge for the young kid. And in such a condition, playing football was like challenging death itself. But the kid did it anyway. He was brave. There were times when all he could do was sit on the sidelines and watch his friends play. But even in such times, he would try to learn different tactics and tricks from the match. Another big problem for the kid was money. Football has been a luxurious game right from the start. But the Rimmer family did not have enough money to buy Jimmy football, shoes, and other equipment that were required for the game. But you know, when there is a will, there is a way. Jimmy would often be found playing games in hand-me-down clothes and shoes that were either too big or worn out. But the point is, he kept playing. Despite all the challenges, he kept playing. But just playing in the local matches or with his friends wasn't enough, right? Jimmy wanted to make football his career, but there was a huge gap. In Southport, there were almost no formal academies or programs that would train aspiring footballers. As a result, if you wanted to become a footballer at that time, you would either need to move out of the city or learn on your own. Since the kid didn't have that sort of money to move out, he chose the second option. After training himself for months with a tin can as his target and the wall as his opponent, Jimmy's talent was finally acknowledged by his school teachers, and he was given a spot in the school's football team, and that is where his quick reflexes, sharp movements and fearless approach made him one of the best goalkeepers in the whole city. Rimmer's breakthrough in football came when a local scout noticed him during a school game and was super impressed. He talked to his parents and convinced them to send Jimmy with him for further training. The boy who once struggled with asthma and such disastrous financial hardships was now finally on his way to a whole new life. Rimmer joined Manchester United as a schoolboy in 1963, which became a professional contract just 2 years later, when Rimmer made his debut for the club. In his 21-year-long professional career, Rimmer rose to the top as one of the safest goalkeepers in the industry and achieved multiple accolades and titles with different clubs. On the field, he was a proper professional player who followed discipline and valued the ethics of the game. But can we say the same for his personal life as well? Clearly not. He was deep into alcohol consumption, which not only affected his health and personal life, but could also be clearly seen on the field. We can even link his alcohol addiction to the alarming number of injuries that he had throughout his whole career. His health was something that constantly pulled Rimmer back. Had it not been for his injuries, Jimmy would definitely have enjoyed a much longer career with many more achievements. And if it weren't for his injuries, he might even have played the European Cup final and avoided the heated controversy that left such a bad scar on his career for the rest of his life. So, the whole incident took place in 1982 during the European Cup final. Rimmer was at the time with the club Aston Villa, who had qualified for the cup finals against Bayern Munich. It was one of the biggest chances for Aston Villa to lift the Euro Cup for the first time in their history, and Rimmer, being the #1 goalkeeper of the team, had to play a very crucial role in stopping the opponents from taking any lead. But as the game kicked off, it turned out that things could not have been worse for the team. In the very 9th minute of the game, Rimmer suffered a vicious neck injury and had to leave the field then and there. It was a huge blow for the team. Their number one goalkeeper, who had only missed one game in the past 5 years with the club, was now out of the game. As Rimmer's replacement, Nigel Spink was sent to guard the post, but it wasn't a very normal decision. And here's why. Till he was sent to goalkeep in the finals, Spink had played only one senior game, and he was sent straight into the fire against the top-class attack of Munich. However, Spink performed better than he himself had hoped for that day and played a major contribution to Villa's cup win. The first ever Euro Cup lifted by the club, by the way, but the heat wasn't over then. There were so many controversies in the media regarding Rimmer's unusual replacement at such an early moment of the game. Some said it was Rimmer's alcohol addiction that had caused the injury, while some did not even want to believe that he had an actual injury at all. According to them, Rimmer did not have any injury, and it was a tactical decision by the manager to present a surprise element to Munich players. Was it a valid point? I personally don't think so. Even if it was a sort of tactical decision, do you think Rimmer would have agreed to such a thing? Not just that, a surprise element could also be presented right from the start of the game, right? Why waste 9 minutes then? Well, these are just my opinions and yours could be completely different. Got one? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Jimmy played one more season with Aston Villa before moving back to Swansea City. With Villa, Rimmer appeared in 229 matches, which was also the highest he made for any club, and was the number one goalkeeper in most of the matches. However, this was the time when he was in the prime of his form. But things aren't always the same, as we all know. Starting with Manchester United, Jimmy had to constantly struggle to make his place in the team. In the 11 years that he spent with the Red Devils, Rimmer spent the initial years as the understudy of then-star goalkeeper Alex Stepney. In fact, it was with Manchester United when Rimmer won his first European Cup final in 1968, although he wasn't in the playing 11. His next big stop was Arsenal, with which he made a remarkable debut with a clean sheet against Liverpool. Jimmy was actually signed as a long-term replacement for Bob Wilson, and once he retired at the end of the 1973-74 season, the young star from Southport became the number one choice for the club. Jimmy performed extraordinarily well with Arsenal and even won Arsenal's Player of the Year award in 1975. A very interesting thing with Jimmy was his consistency with the clubs. Despite having so many health issues like asthma and such an injury-prone body, Rimmer would hardly be unavailable for any match, especially the important ones. And this was so contradictory with his life, right? I mean, Jimmy had a career full of injuries, and as I said earlier, if he had not suffered so many injuries, his career would be much longer and more accomplished than it already was. First, we have the infamous neck injury during the '82 Euro Cup final. Then we have one of his most hurting injuries, both physically and mentally, that came during his time at Arsenal and decided the upcoming course of his professional career. So, after being the number one goalkeeper for Arsenal for quite some time, Rimmer suffered a major shoulder dislocation during a game that sidelined for a long period of time, forcing him to miss some very crucial games. Although he recovered from it much more quickly than he was expected to, his rhythm and reflexes were highly affected. This raised a big question mark on his position as the number one keeper for the team and eventually led to his transfer to Aston Villa in 1977. But he wasn't a team goalkeeper for them either. Although Rimmer enjoyed a very amazing career with Aston Villa, winning a First Division winners' medal in 1981 and lifting the Euro Cup the very next year, he suffered a lot from chronic muscle strains and constant minor injuries. He wasn't getting younger every day, right? As a result, he would often be suffering from issues like hamstring or knee niggles. And yes, these injuries did not stop him from playing the matches. The difference in his agility, movement and reflexes could easily be noted. Not to full extent, but we can somewhat blame the neck injury for Jimmy's transfer from Aston Villa as well. I mean, he had been one of the best players in the team for the past 4 or 5 years, and the club even won the cup final with him. Then why suddenly transfer him the very next year? What do you think? After his departure from Villa, Jimmy went on to play for some other clubs, including Swansea City, Ham Run Spartans and Luton Town. Although he did not play a single match for the latter two clubs, he also got a chance to play for his national team against Italy in a friendly match, his only appearance in the national English jersey. But his performance was far from good as he let 2 goals slide into the netting in the first half. With all these constant ups and downs, Jimmy finally retired from the game in 1986. However, things again got really bad for the star goalkeeper as the money, which was once flowing in constantly, stopped coming in. Well, this wasn't a very new thing in the football industry, as many players struggled to manage their expenses after retirement and faced financial struggles. For Jimmy too, things were the same. In his later years, Jimmy has openly talked about his alcohol addiction and how that, combined with his financial crisis after retirement, damaged his personal life severely. The money was coming less, but the alcohol was getting more and more. That was the case with Jimmy. Things got so bad that he actually had to seek a doctor and opted for treatment to give up his addiction and manage his expenses in a better way. Money was also the reason why he went back to the field as a coach for Swansea, Dalian Shide, and the national team of China. Throughout his whole life, Jimmy saw so much and so many things. From playing on the streets of Southport to leading Aston Villa to a cup win, Jimmy's determination, discipline, and dedication towards the game finally paid off. But this wasn't an easy ride. He had to overcome so many hurdles, whether it was his addiction, the frequent injuries that he suffered, or the severe financial struggles he had to face. In my opinion, Jimmy's life teaches us two very important lessons. Keep dreaming big. Unless you dream big, you cannot do big. That is a fact. And second, life may give you lemonade sometimes, but you must make lemonade out of them. He didn't have money, but he still played. He faced so many injuries, he still played. He even got addicted to alcohol. Still, he quit it and played. And we all know how great that made him. If you enjoyed watching the video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Sport Icons for more such interesting stories from the world of sports. I'll see you soon with another video. Till then, stay entertained.